Well, it's coming up on the end of February, which means that our local tracks open in about 2 weeks. And that means it's time to get this thing together and running and out there. So this coming weekend, Saturday evening, and then all day Sunday, we'll be doing a live assembly, a live build. So we're going to put this motor together Saturday night, and then Sunday, we're going to stick it in the car, get it running, and if it's not raining out, we'll go out and do a couple of burnouts with the thing. So that's the plan for this. But let me bring you guys up to speed. Anybody who hasn't been following along, or let's just give you the condensed version of everything. So we got the car out for the first time last September. We went to the Slanted Nationals, and we put 4 runs on the car, and everything functioned beautifully. The only issue with it was that it was slow, slow, like you could time this thing with the erosion of rocks. Okay. We attributed that to a mixed match carburetor. It was our first attempt at any of this stuff. So we had a vacuum secondary carburetor on it. And after examining everything that was going on, we found 2 issues with it. And the first was that it was extremely fat off idle. And then the second was the engine just did not have enough oomph to operate the secondaries. So basically we were just making 2-barrel runs. So we switched over to a mechanical secondary carburetor. And our first time out, we still had that fatness. The first 10, 20 feet or so, she was like just not there. But then all of a sudden, bam, she came up hard, pulled really hard. And that's where we had a problem. So this is the oil pan. And we had this originally on the car, stock pan, but we cut this windows tray up. We fitted this windows tray into it. And we added a baffle to it. But it wasn't enough. So what I ended up doing was when it pulled hard on the second time out, it just ran everything dry, and we ended up spinning a bearing, a rod bearing. So what I did to fix this was, this is the sump off of a Dodge truck, a 360 oil pan, and we just grafted it into our 6-cylinder pan here. And then I've got this is a small block Mopar oil pickup tube, and I've completely reconfigured it and rebent it and everything to work with the sump that we've got here now. So we've got plenty of capacity to keep this thing happy no matter what happens with it. So that's the fix for that. In the meantime, we also had to change out one of the connecting rods because it had spun a rod. So we got a new rod on there. And the crank, it tore up the crank. So we've got this one. Before we sent this out to the machine shop, I did a little blueprinting on this. So I took down all of the casting flash on it, all of the rough areas. I more or less blueprinted it with a grinder before I sent it out to have it cut. So this is cut and ready to go. I've got new bearings for it. I haven't measured everything up yet. I got to do that tonight so that I can procure whatever parts we need before the weekend, if I do. But generally, I use Shacklets in Nashville, and Kermit is their crank guy. I trust them with my life. They're fantastic, and I don't even get a discount. I pay full cash, same thing that everybody else does. But they're my machine shop. Those are the guys. PG in Brooklyn used to be my machine shop. Now it's Shacklets. So like I said, it's not a plug or anything. Half of them I don't even think know I do YouTube. So, but anyway, before I sent it off to them, I gave it a blueprinting, and she should be ready to go. I'll measure up the bearings, make sure all clearances are right tonight. So that's that. On the block. Okay, so the block didn't get hurt in all of that, but when I lightened this block, I spent a long time last year. I took about 20 pounds, 25 pounds out of the block. I ground down every little piece of it that I could, anything that was extra going for the ride. And I went too far here. This block had a ledge that ran along the outer part, and I trimmed that in half, and I came a little too close to the corner here. So what happened was I had an oil leak from between the head and the deck. The head just overhung the deck enough that we had an oil leak. So since then, I've built that up with weld. It's covered with epoxy now. I just need to surface it, and we're good to go. So that was straightforward. That was a simple fix. But then I had a mystery issue. What good is doing this stuff if you don't come across mysteries, right? It's what keeps you on your toes. So here's the mystery issue. Let me give you the setup on this. So I had the head cut 100 thousandths. And then I had the block cut 10, just to give it a fresh surface. And then he says, no, I want to cut the block 2. So I told him, cut it 100. So it ended up 110 total on the block and 100 on the head. I wouldn't think that this was a problem. I wouldn't think this is an issue at all. Except I used, so this is the stock style steel shim head gasket. And this is a new gasket that I pulled out of the box, out of the package. I gave it a spray of copper coat and sent it. So upon this teardown, I found that I've got carbon marks between the cylinders here. Now, it never shared fire. These are okay, right? This one's got a little carbon over here, but this one has a lot of carbon. It comes right to the edge there. And this one has just enough darkening on it that I'm saying to myself, I don't like the way this looks. It's possible that with all of the weight I took out of the block, plus all of the material that was taken off the deck, plus all the material was taken off the head, there's a good chance that this thing is moving around just enough so that when it's under load, it's trying to lift the head or move it around a little bit, and that's why I've got this carbon over here. So we've decided, instead of using the steel shim gasket, we're going to go with this composite gasket. So the composite gasket is 12 thousandths of an inch compressed height taller than the steel shim gasket. So we're going to be giving up a little bit of compression on it. But what I like about these is that the firing comes right exactly to the edge of the cylinder. Where on the steel shim gasket, there's a little bit of a gap between the inside of the cylinder and where the firing starts. So this has the firing right exactly at the outside of it, and I think that the composite gasket will do a better job sealing than the steel shim on this. And like I said, it's not like it was sharing fire. This engine in no time ever skipped a beat. It never misfired or gave any indication at all that it was sharing, it had a head gasket issue, or zero indication of that. But those carbon marks tell me that we were right there on the edge. So that's it with that. And we'll give up our 12 thousandths of an inch of compression. And it still works out that if we had cut 100 and 100, if you think of it that way. So that's that. The oil pump, I went through the oil pump. So I just blueprinting it, just making sure everything was like right, cleaning off any sharp edges on the inside. So the oil pump's ready to go. And like I said, we did have to change one of the connecting rods. So we're going together fresh downstairs. The intake manifold, these things are born, these Offenhauser intake manifolds are born with a divider, right? And the divider is actually, on these manifolds, it's actually structural. And that's because when you put this thing on a stock engine, the exhaust manifold is supposed to bolt here. So you've got forces happening in this area, and they automatically come with this divider in there, and it stiffens up this whole section. But on this engine, we use headers. There's nothing here. This manifold is just overhanging air. So that's not necessary. So we cut these out, and now we can play around with both 4-hole and open spacers. And I don't know if it's going to make a difference. I don't know if it's going to affect jetting. And we did spend a lot of time late last year, in the fall, messing with the jetting. And we had it dead nuts perfect. I had, with a first gear run, first gear into second gear, shut off, check the plugs. The coloring was perfect all the way across. So I don't know if this is going to change it or not, but I mean, I'm willing to go back and reconfigure the jetting if one of them shows an advantage over the other. That's just the kind of race car stuff that's like, that makes race cars and interesting. The eternal tuning and quest for little, right? You got to be crazy to do this stuff. The cam was perfect, and I gotta give a shout out to Comp Cams for that. And I paid for this. It's not like, oh, you got free cams or anything. No, I paid for it. I ordered it just like anybody else would, and it spec'd out perfect for the cause. So no questions, no nothing. It's going back in exactly the way I had it the last time. Very, very happy with that. What else is there? I had, with the push rods and the stock rockers, the push rods, the rockers, that cam at full lift, I was having just barely contact between the cup and the inside part of the rocker, you know, where the adjuster is. So not enough to really be an issue, but enough to say it's too tight for. So I could have gone with shorter push rods. I don't want to do that just in case I change the plan with the block or the head. I want to stick with the stock length push rod on it. So what I've done here is I bought a set of these shims. So Mancini Racing makes these. Everybody used to make, Direct Connection used to make these. They're shims that go underneath the rocker shaft, between the head and the rocker shaft, right in the pedestal right here. So these are 30 thousandths of an inch. The extra 12 thousandths of an inch head gasket and these will give us a total of 42 thousandths height. And then you have to double that because you've got the lash. And all right, so we'll have more than enough by shimming the rockers. We'll have more than enough clearance to stick with the stock length push rods. Now these things, for you guys who don't know, these are generally used if you're doing a V8 engine. Let's say you cut the deck on it or you cut the head and you want to retain the stamped steel rockers, stock length push rods. You would use these shims to raise the rocker and reduce the amount of preload. Because let's say you cut 20 thousandths off the deck. Well, you're pushing the push rod 20 thousandths of an inch deeper into the lifter. So you use these shims to correct that ratio. In this case, we're just using them to get us a little extra breathing room between the rocker and the cup. But they're cheap. They come in like 5 thousandths, 10, 15, and 30 thousandths. So if you're rocker shims. And I think that's it. I think I covered everything, all of the changes, the little things that we're fixing and straightening out. And that's it. The car itself just needs a good cleaning, a good going through before I drop this motor back in it. I'll get that done. And she's ready to hit the track again. With any luck, we'll be able to get this thing dialed in within the first 2 or 3 trips out there. And then I can pass this whole mess off to somebody else to run while I do other stuff. So that's it. That's the update. If you're not doing anything this weekend, this Saturday night, around 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock Central Standard Time, we'll start on this, and we should have it all wrapped up Sunday evening. And that's it. I'll see you tomorrow.